let's react to a video that is on the topic of marriage. At least that's what the title says. Um, between Matt Walsh and someone named Jillian Michaels. I don't know who that is. Um, but it's obviously if she's going to be going against Matt Walsh's definition of marriage, and I'm assuming Matt Walsh's definition of marriage is a Christian one, then it'd be interesting to see what she is going to say. And so I look forward to watching this with you guys and reacting to it. And let's see if Matt Walsh can hold it down as a biblical definition of marriage defined by God or not.
But I've looked up the definition of marriage. I don't see it say. I mean, I got Wiki. I went to the well on this one. Merriam-Webster. Like, what am I missing? So Merriam-Webster,
What did Webster say?
the state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. Like, I just want to understand it because
Well, here's what I would say. Uh, you said, well, how does
is it religious?
well, it's part of my faith. I don't deny that. Um, I also think that what I'm saying, even if I didn't have a deep Christian faith, uh, my stance on marriage and the family, I think, would probably be the same. So your question was, well, how does someone have a gay couple? How does that impact my family? And the answer is that you individually don't have any impact on me or on my family. Obviously, we're not walking around every day. We don't like get up in the morning and we're like, oh man, Jillian Michaels is we
Gay
can't
married.
can't make breakfast this morning because it's not, that's of course not what's happening, and I would never claim that. Um, the issue is it's a societal. It's an issue in society. It's a societal wide issue that when a society abandons what has always been recognized as the definition and meaning and purpose of the marital union, when they abandon what marriage is, that has vast implications for society. And
What is the definition that you have that's outside of what's in the dictionary?
So she is advocating for gay marriage, and she's been throwing out sort like from the beginning up until now different definitions of marriage. And it's very interesting to hear. It sounds very vague. It's like one person and another, and sometimes it was saying something about in law. It has to do with yeah being certified by law. Is that what makes marriage marriage? Yeah. So this is the problem when you actually are not able to have a worldview that accounts for why there is marriage. And marriage is used as an illustration of Christ and the church. So God established marriage, but let's see if Matt will actually define it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to understand. Is it religious? And then which religion? Because there's different definitions of marriage per polygamy, this common law marriage, trima group marriage. I mean, that's
because marriage codifies, protects, uh, sanctifies the inherently procreative union of a man and a woman.
okay.
And
That's for you though.
that, well, it's first of all, it's not just for me. It's for society since the dawn of human civilization until approximately 15 seconds ago. Um, so it's not just me. Uh, and we see that there's this one pairing that has this funny habit of creating people. Um, there's this one type of pairing that only this type can create a person.
Okay.
I think we would say, well, that's different. This is a different kind of thing because it's different from these other relationships because it has this capacity that no other relationship does. And that capacity is not It's not a small thing. It's not incidental. It's not uh, it's not superficial. I mean, it creates people. In fact, the further existence of
Sex creates people.
right
I
sex
mean,
between a
a
man and a
one
woman.
night stand can create a person.
Right.
I would say a marriage
Yes, but
nurtures a child in a loving marriage with kids, but two idiots having a one night stand can have a baby.
sure. And that exactly. And that I think only proves my point that this union, this coupling of a man and a woman is loaded with implications and with a power that no other type of relationship. Let me finish.
Yeah, you're right. Go
No
ahead.
other type of relationship has.
Sure.
And so I think it makes sense for society to say, well, this is a different kind of thing.
Okay. I
A
mean,
union that by its nature can procreate. Although of course we know that
there are
there are
plenty of
plenty of
married
cases where they don't.
couples that don't have kids, right?
Right.
And
But
I would say that it's not marriage that makes a baby, it's sex between a man and a woman that makes a baby, and
yeah,
anybody
marriage
can
doesn't
do
make the
that,
baby. Right. You're right.
married or not. And
Marriage.
So she makes an interesting point, and she's made it a couple times so far. Um, Matt Walsh is assuming that sex only takes uh is only taken in marriage, is only done in marriage. But she keeps saying, "Well, a one night stand can make a human being." So, what's it's sex. It's not marriage. Sex is what procreates, and she has a point. She has a point, and I don't think Matt has been really clear at all. Um, he said that you know, this is part of his faith, but he hasn't defined it biblically. Um, he hasn't defined it at all, and that is why he can't really answer. Doesn't seem like. Let's see what he says. Uh, her procreation is not unique to marriage. Sex is not unique to marriage, or um, only capable of having in marriage. So, what's wrong with being emotionally and physically attached to something else or someone else? And so, if unless he's going to give God's definition of marriage, which was through Adam and Eve, without before there was Cain, Abel, Seth, anybody, male and female, in a unique way. So let's see what he continues to say.
Marriage is there to protect and solidify that family for when the baby is created. Of course, the marriage doesn't create the baby, but the marriage is there very much there for the baby.
but then why would you deny children in a gay family to have those protections? Because there are tons of them. There are over 1,100 rights that come with marriage. I'm a tax-paying American. Why would I be denied that? I mean, the list is like insane. It's everything from making spousal medical decisions, being able to jointly adopt a kid, joint filing of taxes. I mean, the list is so long. Property tax exemptions. It's 1,100. And these are things that I do want to be able to protect my wife when I die, to pass our things on to her, for her to be able to visit me whenever, if I'm sick, for her to be able to say DNR if I'm dying, and vice versa. And then there's all kinds of things that protect kids. Like, what if I was a scumbag and I don't want to pay for the two kids that I had from my previous relationship? Like, I legally have to do that. Like, well, if we were married, I did not marry this woman, but I protect my kids. But imagine if I was a scumbag, if we were married, there's laws that I have to take care of them. And if she said, well, you know, the boy child's mine, I would have no right to the child if I didn't have the rights that are provided. She could take my son and boogie. And so there's so many protections that this provides for the kids and for people who love each other that I can't understand. I get why you feel like, hey, you're threatening what I have that's special.
I just have a question for anybody that is not a Christian. would you be willing to, because you talked about having all these rights, 1,100 of them. If you were given those 1,100 rights, or any, uh, not specifically you, doesn't have to be you, but anyone who is in a, gay or lesbian relationship, would you be able or be willing to forego your relationship being called a marriage if you were granted these 1,100 rights? I would like to know that, because if you're tying it down to legal reasons, then legally, if you get everything, why would you still be contending for for the definition of that relationship to be marriage? So yeah, for anyone who has an answer to that, please comment it. I'd be interested to hear it.
I don't agree with it, but I understand it. And I wish there was a way for me to make you
But
not feel
it's
diminished.
not you threatening, it's the societal recognition, um, of it as a marriage. The trying to equate it with what I would consider to be true marriage, that becomes uh, the threat, if you will, if that's the language you want to use. The institution of the family is the bedrock of human civilization. Um, Marriage is the bedrock of the family, and so anything that threatens the family, yes, it does. It threatens the things I hold dear because I hold civilization dear, and so in that sense, yes.
In a perfect world, kid would have a mom and a dad. I understand how important those two roles are. Trust me. Which arguably, I was like, I don't, I wanted to adopt a child. My ex wanted to have one. I don't want to take that away from her. I'm not sorry. Kids, both of them are the apple of my eye. That said, it was of deep concern to have a boy without a father. I don't disagree at all. What about the dad that never showed up? What about the dad that took off? What about the dad that was an alcoholic? Well, I know I didn't have a super duper dad. He's like, well, love is the most important thing. I was like, I would say that. That would be my argument because from a hierarchical perspective, I'll give you the top of the mountain. But then I think love, and that would be, a marriage without love, I think you lose too. So if you said man, woman, love, I would go, yes, I'm with you, number one. But when in the world are you getting this unicorn society? Like your house might be that, and that's wonderful. But I would tell you, I don't think the majority are.
So this is interesting. You know, she is saying and does recognize the importance of a father and a mother, and that both um, are needed in the proper and right nourishment of a child and growing and raising of a child. Um, and she says even that in a perfect world, that is what you would have. And essentially, to redefine marriage, to make it much different, because its ultimate purpose, or the fulfillment of that purpose in a complete sense, is not possible. That's an interesting statement. If I'm missing something, let me know. But I'm having a little bit of problem with Matt. He doesn't, he can't define marriage. He still hasn't defined it, let alone biblically defined it. He keeps talking about different aspects of it, but like what is it? And that's what she's unable to pin down on him, because he's not making that clear. And I don't know if he's hesitant to discuss God, but if you're going to define marriage and you're a Christian, that is the only way to define it. So let's see what happens.
And I think providing kids with love and structure is the most important thing if you don't have this perfect scenario. And allowing gay parents to get married
I'm sorry,
is
wait,
so much better
what?
and allowing gay parents to get married. And I think providing kids with love and structure is the most important thing if you don't have this perfect scenario. And allowing gay parents to get married is so much better for the psychology of their children. And I think it's a fantasy world to think they won't have kids.
Well, I mean, they won't have kids. That's part of the point.
Well,
So,
my ex had a kid.
but in a gay relationship, you're not going to have kids in the sense that a man and woman create kids. In so many scenarios, this ideal that I'm talking about is not realized. I mean, we just talked about the black community, 70%, 80% fatherless rate. White community, like I said, I think it's 30 or 40%. It's rising. I think the way to address that is not to just give up on the concept of marriage and family as it's been understood for thousands of years, but
Thousands of
but to
years. Like, where's
but to tr- but to solidify and protect what we have. And I mean, it has been thousands of years.
But men have had numerous wives too in different cultures. If you go, what book are we talking about?
Yeah, you'll find historically.
I'm an idiot on this stuff, but
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say. You'll find historically that polygamy has been. There have been cultures that practice polygamy. Even now today, you'll find that.
Um, well, it's true that Abraham had, well, he didn't have a wife, other than Sarah, uh, at least until Sarah died. After she passed, he remarried. But with Hagar, this was Sarah's insistence that he basically uh, create a child with Hagar, her servant, and in that way she could have a child because Sarah was barren, which was wrong. It was wrong, and just look at how things ended up. Uh, that that ended horribly, and so obviously um, that is not approved by God. God defined it as one man, one woman. Jesus also reiterates this in the New Testament: one man, one woman, one flesh. But she's throwing out all these different scenarios, and Matt has not defined marriage. And so he's just sort of, all of these blows she's throwing are landing because he won't define it. This it's a little bit irritating. So let's continue to see what happens.
But and I'm certainly not a polygamist myself, and I don't condone it. Uh,
Might be missing out.
no, I don't think I'm quite happy. But
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
but here's the point that those marriages were still fundamentally procreative, and so it was still the recognition of this basic deep truth that I'm talking about, even in societies that practice polygamy. In fact, for them, procreation was so much the point that that's part of the reason why they had polygamy, was so they could create even more kids. And if you go back far enough in time into human history, when there weren't that many people on Earth, yeah, you could.
Why be married if it's all about having kids?
I mean, well, you could argue if you go.
Okay, so that's the question, right? Why get married if you can have kids? And this is the problem. If you're only going to define marriage as procreative, and it's never less than that, but it's more than just procreation. It's more. It is a image of Christ in the church, and it and the full expression of God's image is displayed only and uniquely in a man and a woman, and the two will become one flesh. So yeah, he's going to have to define it more than just procreation. Otherwise, you can just keep asking the question, what's wrong with polygamy? Because you can have many children. And he seems to agree with that in some sense. Why is that wrong? If it's just procreation, there has to be something more. He has to give a biblical definition of marriage, or he he'll get nowhere.
back far enough in history, you could argue that that way back when that polygamy served a purpose in like populating the earth and we don't so but it's always been that fundamental purpose. There has never been a society until ours right now that has said, well, actually, marriage has nothing to do with procreation at all. For the institution of marriage to be essentially disbanded, as it has been in this country,
I don't
and
see that, Matt.
any effort to
I don't see that allowing people to be a part of something that is special. I don't see how that disbands it. I see
how
it as,
how would you define marriage?
well, I mean, I would go with these literal definitions. So, the state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. That is literally how I define it.
Do you recognize at least that removing the family, removing the creation of children from the definition entirely
What
means
about
that
the couples that
means that
don't
you have a
have
it means that you have
kids?
it means you have a definition there that is, would you at least recognize
Okay.
that it is unprecedented in the history of human civilization?
I guess so. I mean, I would have to go, I don't know. I know that there's been homosexuality throughout history, but at the same time, women were getting raped, slavery was legal. Like, there's a lot of things we had to evolve out of. So, if we dive back,
I don't think marriage was one of those things.
but marriage has
Marriage was, again, it's the foundation of human
but you're
civilization.
defining
He says marriage is not one of those things. Why? Why is it not? This is frustrating, but it seems like that's exactly what Matt's continuing to do. And what about homosexuality? Yeah, homosexuality is not new. Neither is lesbianism. I mean, Paul mentions it in Romans 1. This is not something that no one in humanity has done. The question is it right? Is it right? And if he won't define it, then he cannot say other than his own opinion, that just subjective opinion, that it's for just procreation. He's sticking with procreation, which she's getting nowhere because she's saying you can procreate in every other kind of, in a polygamous relationship too. So what's the problem? See if we actually get somewhere with Matt. This is frustrating to watch.
Slavery
marriage
and
as
are not.
okay, but your definite, and this is where I guess we would have to agree to disagree. Is your definition is copulation? To me, that's copulation. Marriage is this, and so to me, it's about protecting
That's
the
not the
kid.
entire definition. Procreation, I'd prefer to say,
Okay.
is not the entire definition of marriage, but it is an essential component of what marriage
What
is.
about people that don't have kids that are married? I don't see you going after their marriage.
That does not challenge the inherent nature of the thing. So you could have couples that
But you're saying the inherent nature is procreation.
right
What if they're not procreating?
right and there are it's like natural, it's in our nature for a human being to be born with two legs. Um, there are humans that are born without them. That doesn't mean they're not human, but this is a there's something has gone wrong, and so they were not able to fully participate in that aspect of being a human.
Also, I would simply say, being a person of faith, obviously you believe in God. Why would God create something that is not okay?
His analogy um, isn't wrong. It's a good one. It's a good one. The exception does not define the rule, essentially. But if you only define it as procreative, then it kind of does. Why is it still marriage if there is no children? If he cannot define it biblically, he just can't do this. And let's see what he says to this, actually, because why would God create something that's wrong? Let me just give you the answer before he answers to see if his lines up. Um, God did not create homosexuality or lesbianism. He did not create stealing. He did not create unaliving people. It- these are things that people do out of the wickedness in their hearts. let's say homosexuality is biological and it's genetic. There's genetic components. It's in our DNA. Let's even say that. Would it still be wrong? Yes. What if somebody says, well, they were born with, let's say, um, born and grew up, and they produced excessive amounts of testosterone, which led them into can lead them into fits of rage, where he just starts hitting everybody around. Can he say that's God's fault because he made me like this? He made me like this. I didn't do this to myself. He made me like this. No, no, that's just not true. The whole point is that God has his law, and his law restricts and constrains what we can do and gives us freedom to do what we should do.
Also, I would simply say, being a person of faith, obviously you believe in God. Why would God create something that is not okay? Like, somehow, unless if you're an atheist or you're agnostic, then maybe you could say like this is a freak show. But if you believe in God, why would he, she, whatever they pick?
He.
Did you have it?
Let's do he.
let's do God. So we don't get into too much trouble. God, because I say she, you'll say he. Let's settle on God. I'm actually genderless with my God. Okay, moving on, Jill. Point being, why would God allow for gay people to exist?
Are you Christian? Are you?
I'm totally agnostic. I think there's more. I think everything's just far too awesome for there not to be some creating energy. I don't judge people for their religion, whatever it may be. None of my business. Don't care. Respect all of it. But if you are a believer, why would God create something that's wrong?
I mean, the only thing I would say to that is uh, what I would say in my faith is that just because we find in ourselves a desire to do something, that doesn't mean that God wants us to do it. I mean, there are many examples, and we could list examples of things that people want to do that they shouldn't do. Um, does that mean that God ordains it just because they find that desire in them? I would say no. In fact, even let's take a married man who might experience the desire to have an affair. He didn't choose to want that, but he wants it. And did that come from God? I would say that it didn't. And in fact, what God wants in that case is for you to reject that desire that you have and put it on, and
But that's like
stay
saying
true to
you want a
your
black
duties.
person to reject being black. Gay people, a lot of us are just born this way. At least for me and everybody I know, it's not a choice. It's, and also I think there's more harm done by rejecting who you are than being who you are. Whereas if you're in a marriage and you cheat, I don't see anything good coming out of that.
Mhm.
If you're unhappy, I would say you've outgrown the marriage. That's unfortunate. I understand you would fight for it. I think people can grow apart. I would say maybe this isn't the marriage for you. Personally, I wouldn't make that choice willy-nilly. Listen, um, first of all, keeping it real with Jillian Michaels.
Okay. Um. So I think he did. For that last question, I think he answered it really well, giving the example of a man who obviously desires to sleep with other women, um, and he's married. Does that desire come from God? No, it doesn't. Um, and so that's why I was willing even to say it could be a biological. I don't think it is, but if it is, that doesn't change anything. That fundamentally doesn't change anything from the biblical perspective. Um, I think he didn't do himself any favors. in trying to talk about marriage. Like, it seemed like he was just coming like, okay, this aspect of marriage, and then there's this aspect, and I don't know, maybe many Christians do think that way, that it is solely for the purpose of procreation. I think procreation is one of the purposes, but it is not the purpose of it. It is not by itself a comprehensive uh, definition definition or reason for marriage to exist. And so I don't think he did he didn't I mean, I think she used the word God more than he did throughout this whole conversation. Um and so he wasn't willing to go biblically. He was going more from societal, but then he couldn't answer polygamous relationships with one man and many women. If it's just procreation, why is that wrong? You know, all these sorts of things. So he sort of tried to sidestep all of it, but if you're keeping track, he wasn't able to actually refute any of that. Um, At all. I mean, he was able to say at least about marriage, it's good for the child, a man and a woman, which she conceded. But then that changed when he had to address the question of polygamy. His position didn't change, but this element of polygamy then made his argument or his definition um, just not sustainable because it adds in a factor that his definition cannot withstand. So, with that being said, you guys let me know what you think. Um, and tell me, I'd be interested to know for whoever watches, believer, non-believer, atheist, Muslim, to tell me what your definition of marriage is in the comments. Um, but with that, it was great to watch this with you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Through faith alone, in Christ alone.